Well, it is time for us to start. I have not heard from Ed. Yeah. It's unclear to me what Perrin had in mind about today.
Aaron never returned my call, so I reached out to the question. So I assume it's not gonna be.
You know,
Did you get any information from that at all, whether it was coming?
I haven't heard from him. Sent him another text. He says he's on his. Let's give it a couple more minutes. It's been sporadic, and one of the things we need to do is decide whether we're doing it or not. There isn't anybody except two board members who decide to come. Generally, has ended up with Daniel Wiggs being the one that can set it up. Kind of help determine what needs to be done and provide some equipment needed, pick up the files after maybe. What we started doing was going up Virginia, and we've gone fairly far up, but really sort of in the first section of Virginia, done that a couple of times, but haven't really gotten it out. So there's a whole bunch that can be done. And I think it would be good to continue kind of move it along as we can. But I think we need to have some consensus about how often we're doing it. Sometimes it's dependent upon the weather. But if you wanted to have that, you could focus on the neighborhood. I'm sorry. You could only go one in the right of way. Yeah. So there's some places where town right of way kind of expands and stuff. So we've done some down away from the road a bit there. That's me and Ed and him.
Aaron's not, you gotta break it through the end.
Ed is, Aaron is work with it, but I'm not sure where it has gone with the town council. Good morning. My printer this morning was just really slow, so I was barely by myself. Okay, so since we're here, we should go ahead and call the order. Let's take a moment of reflection. Okay. Um. So it's a bit different today than when we'll proceed. And I'll explain this peculiar agenda as I go along here. Am I being heard all right? Good. Um. One thing I think we should be doing is making space for each member to give a report if they have one to give. And I've kind of listed there under item number 5, possible reports that can be done on any given week. Assuming that on any given week, most of those would not be done. But I wanted everybody to be able to see the list here today. So that's what that's about. Moving down, I've switched new business and old business in their order here. And so master plan is just I'll explain more about that in a moment. But the main thing that we're going to do is that Kayla has come and she's going to work with us on orienting the tree ordinance. I think I have an extra one right here. Oh. So essentially it's going to be and I think waiting on some of the report things would be the things to do, because what we really want to do today is to focus on reviewing the tree ordinance, and everything else can wait if we'll take some of it up if we have time, but that's the way I'm thinking about it today. Action items, I'm including that in the agenda to remind us to jot down the things that we say we're going to do during the coming month, and that's help us stay on track, I think. So that's that it. According to my calculations, our next meeting would be in August, on the 22nd of August. So I move that we accept the agenda as it is.
I'll second that.
And if they're not objection, they will send it to second. We don't have public here unless Kayla wants to make a comment. Good morning. Okay. So then, and I'm going to reserve any further comment myself until later. Which brings us down to new business. One page that I did include with this is this one page out of the new master plan that's being adopted. And I just wanted to have that on hand. There's a couple of items there that I gave my copy to Ed. So, there's a couple of items in there that call specifically on the tree board to address issues. And it's something that we're going to need to be thinking about and how that impacts how we do business in general. So I just wanted us to have that on hand, but it's not the main focus at the moment. Okay, that said, I want to move on to what I call board organization review of the ordinance. We can be here.
All right. Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
think I've met all of you, but just for anyone watching, my name's Kayla DiChristina and I'm the zoning administrator. Mason asked me to put together a review of the tree ordinance, which is in the Montreat General Ordinance, Article 5, Montreat General Ordinance, Chapter K, Article 5. Please keep in mind that this is out of my realm of expertise, but I do work with ordinances a lot. So, that was kind of, I think, why Mason asked me to take a look at this. All right.
Can I ask you one question?
Yes,
Could you define what an ordinance is?
it's a set of rules and regulations there's a, limit of applicability, a scope, a purpose. It's basically a set of rules. He gave me a fancy clicker and now it's not working because I touched it. What happened? It was off. Okay. All right. So the scope of this review talks about tree board, the responsibilities of the tree board, and then also cut permits or tree removal permits, which is all covered in this article. So the tree board has a couple general provisions. So this board's advisory to the Board of Commissioners. So there are certain actions that the tree board provides comment on. You guys need to adopt rules of procedure if you don't have them already. You have to file minutes and proceedings with the town clerk, just like any other public body. So similar to planning board, Board of Adjustment, which are the boards I worked with. One thing that is specifically called out in the general provisions is submitting an annual report of tree board activities and recommendations to the Board of Commissioners. And then any binding decision that the tree board makes, appeals of that decision would be submitted to the Board of Commissioners. So this is just general provisions, activities of the tree board. Membership. So, and this is all coming right out of the ordinance. In this presentation, in the upper right-hand corner, you can see where I've cited the specific section of the ordinance. So if you want to go back later and find the specific section that this information came out of, you can. So membership. Yes.
We're gonna have to
Mason.
print out of this.
Yeah, I can definitely
Okay.
print everyone copies of this. I sent it to Angie, but I don't know if it got printed, but I will make sure you guys have copies. All right. So tree board composed of 6 members. You have 3. I think Arrington mentioned this before we started, but there are 3 appointed members appointed by the Board of Commissioners that are voting members. There's 1 commissioner that's a voting member. We also have a representative from the Land Care Committee. I think the ordinance specifies it's the chairman, and that is also a voting member. And then the other member is the Public Works Director, and they're a non-voting member. The Public Works Director is the town staff member for the tree board. Terms, you guys have 3-year terms, and this is really similar to the rest of other boards in Montreat. Annually at your first meeting, you guys will select a chairman, vice chair, and secretary, and any vacancies are filled by the Board of Commissioners. Any questions? Okay. So y'all have 8 duties. I summarized them based on some of the specific actions that are called out. Develop a written plan for tree care, satisfy special requests made by the Board of Commissioners, facilitate protection and growth of tree plantings and shrubs in town, communicate with citizens to protect the health and growth of trees and shrubs, conduct a tree survey, identify funding to perform work, conduct continuing education, research and planning to support the purpose of the ordinance, and work with town staff to promote and enforce this part of the general ordinance. So some of these have specific actions, some of them are more, I guess, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but some of them are specific actions. Okay, there are specific responsibilities that the tree board is in charge of. So the first is to develop a written plan with the Public Works Director about the care, preservation, pruning, planting, replanting, removal, and disposition of trees and shrubs in green space within rights of way and on town property. Develop a document with Public Works and the zoning administrator containing the guidelines and specification for tree and shrub planting, care, maintenance, removal, and landscape design. And there's also, under that responsibility is the task to review and propose revisions to this.
Yeah, it's impossible, frankly, for us to see this. It's,
At this angle, it's hard to view this.
it's impossible to view.
Do you want,
Talking so fast, we can't.
do you want me to get some printed copies? I
think we
can-
need those.
Yeah, okay, give me 1 minute. I'll go ahead and print them out.
That's helpful.
Yeah, but I'm blind, I still can't see.
Going back and forth to between that and this, if we can kind of figure out where we at, it's been a challenge too. We're still meeting.
We're on the mic, yeah, we're on,
Okay, so my question is, does any of this exist right now? It's all new.
some of this exists.
Yeah, I was just thinking, one of the things that does exist and is available online, it's what's called the tree management.
And
plan.
that's why I want to sort of, let's get this outline. We need to, you're exactly right, Ed. We need to know what we've got and what we don't have, and she's just running through it like.
The tree management plan is a document that has been developed over time. And one section that's not been developed in there is what's called a planting plan. Tree planting. And we were getting started on that when COVID hit. And haven't caught up.
What is a tree board? Yeah.
6, 7 years. Yeah. So, well, maybe it's a little bit more than that, because our roughly coinciding with its existence has been the membership with the Tree City USA. And then we're in our 8th year of that.
A lot of work. Only deal with trees that are on private property.
Which is a
Private property.
No.
The permit from the city or?
I think the answer to that is no. And the right of way of the city impinges on private properties. And I'm a little unsure what happens in those overlap things, so.
Thank you.
Oh, great. Okay. I mean, it's beautiful.
send a original copy to y'all as well.
Oh, this is great.
Okay.
All right.
Let's go, where do we want to move back to? Just start at general provisions, or where do y'all feel we need to start at?
Go quickly, start from the beginning, quickly.
Okay.
Catch us early.
Okay,
I'm gonna, real quick before Eric is there, ask Angie whether we got this.
What did he say? Rules was,
he's gonna ask Angie if the tree board has rules of procedure.
Existing.
Yeah.
Existing. You get, as the zoning person, do you get involved with any of this? No.
There are a few things, but very minimal.
When you do zoning, you do most of the things are privately, property.
Some mostly private.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
they
there
have
are,
some trees that need to be removed.
we'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll get to that. Okay. All right.
I just confirmed with Angie that we have adopted rules of procedure.
Okay.
She's bringing us a copy.
All right. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move back to general provisions. So once again, tree board is advisory to the Board of Commissioners. Adopt rules of procedure, which Angie says the board has. File minutes and proceedings with town clerk. Conduct acts and decisions reviewed by Board of Commissioners. Appeals of tree board orders and decisions are submitted to the Board of Commissioners. And then the last piece of this is must submit to the Board of Commissioners an annual report of activities and recommendations. So that's one of the specific actions called out in the general provisions. Good. Any questions?
Well, other than a note, I'm not sure the committee was aware that it had to submit an annual report, so we need to be cognizant. I would.
yeah, I want to say, I wondered about that. There's a bunch of pieces here that I did not come to me when I started doing this, and I've wondered about that. I think predecessor may have just done them herself and not discussed them with the meeting. It's part of what I'm trying to do as we move along, is make sure that everybody's aware of what it is we need to do. So.
And
Piece of this.
these pieces can always change. This can be amended too. This is not set in stone. This is a living document. So this is just what's there today, but that doesn't mean it has to be that way.
So my thought is we get familiar with this, see how it fits, and see if there's any changes that need to be made.
Keep going. So composition, 6 members, 3 are appointed by the Board of Commissioners. 1 commissioner serves on the board. The chairman of the Land Care Committee also serves on the board. And the Public Works Director is a non-voting member of the board and also is the town staff member for the board. Terms are 3 years. Annually at your first meeting of the year, you'll select a chair, vice chair, and secretary. Any vacancies are filled by the Board of Commissioners. Okay, duties. So there's a couple specific actions under duties and a couple duties that are more descriptive about purpose. So we've got about 8 of them and I summarized them on here, but in the upper right-hand corner is the section of the ordinance that you can read the detailed information about these duties. So I'll just go through them. Develop a written plan for tree care, satisfy special requests made by the Board of Commissioners, facilitate protection and growth of tree plantings and shrubs in town, communicate with citizens to protect the health and growth of trees and shrubs, conduct a tree survey in the rights of way and on town property, identify funding to perform work, conduct continuing education, research, and planning to support the purpose of the ordinance, and work with town staff to promote and enforce this article.
I'd like to talk about 3 things. in
Sure.
these duties. I'd like to talk about 3 things. First, the number 1 here, develop a written plan for tree care. I believe that's been done.
We
right?
have, we have a tree management plan, as I was saying a minute ago, was that it's not complete. There's a thing called tree planting plan, which is part of that, which we were underway on developing that, and that's when COVID hit. We haven't really recovered.
And
Okay,
there is section 7 in the ordinance that is has planting plan guidelines. So I don't know exactly what is considered the written plan for tree care.
well, Brad, could we get a copy of what we got circulated to the members of the committee so we can sort of see where we're at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, there is stuff on the town website. Some of this is available there, but I'll make sure that
All right.
you get copies sent to you as well.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to, two other things. One, conduct a tree survey in the rights of way. Some of that, the tree survey work has been done and also identify funding to perform the work. We have had over the past, since my being here anyway, tree surveys done in portions of the right of way. I don't think all the right of way has been surveyed, but the tree board did identify, I believe, state funding. It may have been county funding, but I believe it was state funding. And that was utilized, and surveys, in fact, were conducted. And based on those surveys, trees were removed from the town
Right.
right of way. I believe the right of way section was along Assembly Drive.
Yeah, where that's actually the survey has done from here all the way up Graybeard. That's the main thing, both sides of the street there. And then there's a couple of side streets up there that have also been done, but there are large areas that have not been done. There was funding to help with that, and it's keyed partly on volunteer time and stuff like that, but what's happened with that is that the last time that it was been a couple of years ago, last time we applied for additional funding to continue with the survey, the state said no, and the reason was that we had dealt with the previous surveys. And so we're still at that point where we have not completed the work generated by and we're kind of at a log jam about being able to get additional funding on that. There has also been floated an idea that it might be more effective to not have volunteers doing the survey, but to hire a company to do the survey. That would be an efficient approach. So what we need to do is put our heads together with the state forestry person and see how we can get this going. And there's still the issue, Barry a few months ago said that they had 40 trees left from the original list. And I'm not sure how much addition but last time I know that they were able to work on it was about this time last year. And so I don't know whether he's made any further movement on it since then or not. So.
Okay.
One of the issues with the public works people attending this meeting, which they should do, is that they're often tied up with things that have come up and are just not able to do it.
Well, we probably ought to look at a meeting time that they can be here without it interrupting. But I know they are continually, I've worked with Barry a couple of times where he's needed a signature to take trees down. They are continuing to identify trees that need to be removed and removing them time permitting, but it is something they do when they can find the time to do it. It's not part of it. It's I don't want to say it's not high on their list, but it's not. It's what they do when they can get to.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, it seems to me, Mr. Chairman, we do need to take a look at in one of our meetings soon and make sure that staff is, Public Works is here is our status of our tree survey situation, what's done, what needs to be done, et cetera.
Ready to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So responsibilities, develop a written plan with the Public Works Director for the care, preservation, pruning, planting, replanting, removal, and disposition of trees and shrubs and green space within rights of way and on town property. I think you guys just mentioned that part of that may be done. I think some of it may also be in this ordinance because like I said, there are processes outlined in here for the removal of trees, but we'll get to that. Develop a document with Public Works and the zoning administrator containing guidelines and specifications for tree and shrub planting care, maintenance, removal, and landscape design, and review and propose revisions to that document at a minimum every 2 years. And the last is conduct a tree survey of existing trees along rights of way and on town property, which we just discussed. Okay, so on the screen before you and in your printouts is the overall purpose of the tree regulations. So if you guys want to take a moment to look over that.
Brad, where on the website was this tree information? Let me just look here. Tree management. Okay, let's see. We have a tree management guide that is posted.
So I think
Okay.
that sounds like that would satisfy maybe that second responsibility.
Yeah, I believe so.
It would just need to be updated every 2 years. So I'm not
That's
sure the
right.
last time it was looked at.
And yes.
It's been more than 2 years. I wasn't aware that there was a time on it. It's been about 3 years since it was.
Well, this has got maps of inventories. Phase 1 and phase 2 map of inventories, a planting plan. This looks like it was actually specific to the area that was inventoried. We'll need to look at it. Let's see.
I think it was more general than that.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys let me know whether we need to pause or if you guys want me to keep moving.
Let me just finish looking at just a quick review of this. And this is a detailed look at the inventory that was done and the area it was done in. Planting plan is this space held for future use, so it's not done. There's a, it says a planning guide in the appendix.
Planning plan is, there's been work done on it.
The appendix G is recommended species for planting. And I think that comes from the ordinance that Kayla, you referenced.
Mhm.
And then there's an article on tree planting. That is from a magazine of some sort that's attached. I presumably looking at it is the appendix that constitutes the plan.
And like I said, there are in here, and I'll get to it, there are stipulations on planting. And I don't know how much of this came out of that, how much of this needs to go into the planting plan. but we'll see what's
Mhm.
in here.
I've been going on the assumption that they have been kind of checked against each other originally, but where it stands now, I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, so tree regulations apply to all town property, all public rights of way, and all areas designated as green space in the green space agreement, and any areas of private property that are described in the ordinance. So green space means the hatched green areas in the green space agreement. And I'd be happy to provide a copy of that agreement to you guys if needed. It was in my materials.
I think it would be good for the board to have a larger copy of this that we could use at times when it's needed, because this is.
Yeah, I can send y'all this map and it's just a PDF and then a copy of the green space agreement. So just a quick overview of what the green space agreement acceptance and amendment is. So this document was the vehicle that transferred the rights of way and other spaces from the Mountain Retreat Association to the town of Montreat when the town was incorporated. The agreement was filed in 1983, accepted in 1983, and then amended in 2012 to clarify yellow hatched areas. Purposes of areas in the agreement are defined by a color system. Hatched green are open spaces and solid colored lines are rights of way. So the areas that the tree board is concerned with would be the hatched green areas. So you can see them, they're kind of all throughout town. Okay. So let's get into the meat of the ordinance. So the ordinance itself is administered by the Public Works Director. Both the Public Works Director and the Zoning Administrator can inspect areas that are subject to the provisions of this ordinance. So again, that's rights of ways, hatched green areas, public town property, and then any private areas that are identified in the ordinance. Permits for any sort of planting, removal, replacement of trees and shrubs in town property, public rights of way, and green space areas are obtained from the Public Works Director. And Barry works with applicants to determine, what is needed to acquire the permit. Any questions on that?
Maybe going back a little bit,
Mhm.
you're talking about hatched areas
Mhm.
and also about rights of way. And we're responsible for rights of way as well as hatched area.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah,
clear in the way you were reading it, so.
yeah, so it's yeah, all of the solid colors and the hatched green.
There's a portion of the rights of way, hey,
Yeah,
some of them are.
some of them are just reserved.
And there's a few rather large areas that don't have streets. That they're not right away by a street. They're
The
between,
street's
but-
not constructed, so it would include, those areas and then the areas of the right of way that, if you have your road and then on the side trees, it would include those trees as long as they were within the right of way.
What's red mean?
It's just a right of way. The way the green space, I don't have it in front of me, but the way the green space agreement broke it down was certain colors meant that there was something already constructed in there. There were utilities in there. So it's just a different classification of it. But just for y'all's purposes, it's a right of way. So you guys need to just be aware of that space.
So as an example of a red area.
Mhm.
You see on the bottom left, there's that squiggly stuff that's on the south side of town. And then above that is Assembly Drive. Yeah. And then above that, there's two red areas. Yeah, that one, which is that's Quillet. Both of them have to be. And when it kind of seems to go into street, that's not a street there. And then above, there's one that's kind of running vertically, a little bend to it. That's also an extension of, well, it's a creek there, actually.
So it really just depends on the area. And this map is thank you. So some things have been constructed, some haven't. So it just. It's an area that's preserved for some sort of public use. So most of the time it's.
Use my own property as an example, which this is really where I was talking about. There's a little triangle. That will be line of my house. Only when you get on the ground and start looking at it, the limits are, most of what looks like the yard at my house is not. It's right of, we're in being spoke by town right of way and power, which also comes through. There's a very limited the 30 feet of right of way that is statute goes way into what you think is my yard. As a matter of fact, I was just recently been realizing that there's an island out front of the house, and pretty much the whole island is not mine. I'm gonna have to deal with town about things in the kitchen.
Caleb, where would the springs be on here? I'm looking where I think it would be, but
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
with Lithia Springs.
I think it's. If you look,
Yeah. I see Virginia.
it's
I'm drawing around. So it's,
in this patch. It's somewhere.
that's what I thought. Okay.
I don't know exactly where it is, but it's. Okay. Any other comments, questions on this piece? Okay. And I'll send this to y'all so you have a copy of it digitally.
So before we started interrupting, you had talked about procedure for like cutting trees, I guess it was.
We'll get to that. Nope, haven't yet. Josh, this is like not working. It's really unhappy with me. Can you just go to the next slide? Oh, it's not, okay. It's because technology doesn't like me.
You too, huh?
Yeah.
Me too.
You should see me with the printer. It's not great. Josh knows.
You can read this.
Did I really messed it up, didn't I? I really did. Oh my gosh. Let me see if I can. I'm gonna try to pull a copy up on my phone because I did not print myself one. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're just gonna keep going. Let's go to slide 9, page 9. So we'll talk about the administration of the ordinance. I went over this before we jumped back to the green space, but just to keep us in the flow. So ordinance is administered by the Public Works Director. The Public Works Director and the zoning administrator can inspect areas that are subject to the ordinance, and any permits for trees, removal, planting, replacement, have to be obtained from the Public Works Director. And Barry works with the applicants on what they need. All right. So we'll move now into what is in the ordinance about tree care and planting and things like that. So can you go to the next slide? Oh, my word. That one more. I have never had this many issues with when the computer in a meeting before. I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm just gonna keep reading from my phone, and if Josh can get it up. All right, so slide 10, public tree care. So the ordinance gives the town the right to plant, prune, maintain, and remove vegetation in areas that are applicable to the ordinance. Let's see. No person has the same right without obtaining a permit from the Public Works Director. And the tree board can have any tree in an applicable area removed if it's creating unsafe conditions. Otherwise, we have to work with the Public Works Director to get permits and things like that.
So if there's a tree that's on private property that presents a public threat,
We'll get to that. Yeah. So this is for trees in town-owned, on town-owned property and in rights of way. So private will come next. So this is for public trees. So the town has the right to do what it wants with the trees in the public areas. Nobody else does unless they get a permit, and the tree board can bypass the permit process if the tree is creating an unsafe condition. And again, this is for public areas. Okay. Approvals for tree topping are provided by the tree board. So normally the tree removal permits just go through Public Works, but if it's tree topping, that would also need y'all's approval
That's on public.
on public land. Okay, so the next slide, so that's 11, is private tree care. All right, so this is limited. This is on private property. So this is limited to the mitigation of unsafe trees on private property and vegetation that abuts town property. So the ordinance defines what private property is subject to this ordinance. So it's unsafe trees on private property that abuts town property. So not private property abutting private property. So to handle tree
So
removal.
this is an unsafe tree essentially adjacent to public right of way, as opposed to an unsafe tree adjacent to somebody else's backyard.
Mhm. Yep. Yep, it's private abutting public when the tree is unsafe. And I think. And the ordinance does define what an unsafe tree is. So there is a actual criteria it has to meet. Okay, so to remove trees on private property that is abutting public property, the Public Works Director with the commissioner representative on the tree board can remove vegetation on private properties which is unsafe, injurious to the public welfare, or which by reason of its nature is injurious to public improvements or is infested with an injurious fungus, insect, or other pest. And I think that's pretty much covered in the unsafe tree definition.
And I just, so I'm the commissioner representative and I've ridden with Barry. He where he identifies trees on someone else's property. In fact, just a couple of months ago, we identified 2 trees up Great Beard that were on property. For example, on Tyler and Margot's property, it was adjacent to public right of way.
And that's the other one too, is that if it's interfering with free and safe passage along the town right of way by pedestrians or vehicular traffic. So it's those 2 situations that would trigger the public works director to come and say, we need to remove these trees on private property. All right, so prior to approval, the property owner has the right to correct the condition within 30 days. And when the time period elapses, the public works director can perform the work and bill the property owner. If there is an imminent threat to public health, the public works director can act without notifying the property owner, but must notify them after. So all of this, the removal of trees on private property, comes through public works.
Another example that came up on right of way things, again, related to my property and the patchwork of rights of way. I discovered that there was a huge oak tree behind my house that was diseased and it was going to eventually fall. If it fell one way, it would have damaged the house below us. If it fell the other way, it would have damaged my house, plus take out the town power lines. So I brought it to Barry's attention. I had previously measured things and it turned out it was located actually on town right of way, not private property in either case. So although it's between the houses, it was still town right of way thing. And we saw that and took care of it. It got taken down. It was a shame because it's a beautiful old tree, but it was about that big around.
Okay, any questions on this? Okay, next slide, please. Since I've lost my clicker privileges. Okay, the next piece is new development. So for any, I don't want it. For any planned development subject to the provisions of the subdivision ordinance, which we get very, very, very few subdivisions and none, I've had 2 or 3 maybe in the year that I've been with Montreat, and none of them have triggered planting or landscaping. But just for purposes of covering everything that's in this, I am going to talk about it. So for any planned developments that are subject to the provisions of the subdivision ordinance proposing plantings on town property, including rights of way, a planting plan is required to be approved by the public works director. That also goes for any other development activities that desire to plant on town property. So they all have to go through public works.
Kayla, I didn't know we had subdivisions in Montreat.
No, so I know, no, I know what you're thinking. No, a subdivision is just the division of land and into 2 or more pieces. So when you think of a subdivision, you're thinking of like a giant development with like, no, subdivision is just the division of land into 2 or more parcels of land.
Realize.
Yep, that's it.
Realize. One lot into 2.
Yep. Even recombining lots is technically a subdivision. But it's not, nope. So that's new development. And that falls under, my duties as zoning administrator. And I would work with Public Works to make sure that all of this, if they have to have a planting plan or approval, that they would obtain that. Next slide. Okay. Appeals and penalties. So Public Works will notify property owners who are in violation of the regulations. And any appeals from the Public Works Director's decisions are heard and decided by the tree board. And then appeals from the tree board's decisions shall be taken to Buncombe County Superior Court. But I now realize that somewhere else in the ordinance, it says appeals are taken to the Board of Commissioners. Right? Any person may appeal from any ruling or order of the Montreat Tree Board to the Board of Commissioners. So there's a issue there. Yeah, there's an inconsistency. And then violations of the ordinance are subject to civil penalties. Next slide. Okay, so that's it for what's in here. So you can see that most of the tree board's work is in thinking about the town and its tree regulation comprehensively with the written plan, the planting guidelines, and then the permitting is done, permitting for tree removal is done by staff unless there's tree topping that's proposed. Otherwise, everything else in the permitting is done at staff level. That's my summary. Okay, does anyone have any questions about the ordinance?
Question, I have a comment, and that is, never realized the board was, I said, I don't have any, first, it's an excellent presentation.
Okay.
Because this is only my third meeting and it's really fills in a lot of gaps, but thank you for that.
Yeah, no
But the
problem.
importance of the public director is,
Public Works Director.
public works director is tremendous
Mhm.
in this document. And then I guess the tree board's work, and not to have them here on a regular basis is really a problem. And I don't mean that as a personal problem, but just their importance to what we do.
Well, and I will say it can be, and I don't know if it's written in here, but it could be the Public Works Director or his or her designee.
Okay.
They could designate
Right,
someone.
right.
I would imagine that's assumed. I don't know if it's.
Yeah, it's Barry or
Or Daniel.
Daniel Wiggs is his alternate.
Daniel is?
Yeah,
Okay.
Daniel has tended to be here more than Barry has. They're both really strapped at times to
Yeah.
be able to cover all the bases. But it's been a while since we've had either one of them here. And I'd like to see if we can.
If Tuesday at 9:30 is not a good time for them, I understand it may not be, particularly this time of year. We need to find a time that this, I think, as Ed pointed out, it's just critical now. So,
Is there, I mean, there were a lot of permits that had to be issued here, requests. There's a lot kept. Anybody,
Are
is there
there,
any record of all these permits that are?
I
It's
don't,
just like you call the guy up and he said, I got a bad tree, well, what you put on the list?
you have to ask Public Works
Right,
that.
right. Okay.
Yeah. They don't come through zoning, for anything. The only things that would come through zoning would be, planting plans for new development. And if somebody comes in and says to me, I want to do X, Y, Z, and it's going to impact a tree in the public right of way, I send them to Public Works. So you'd have to ask Public Works about that. I can tell you for any subdivision or new development that has triggered a planting plan, which again, there aren't any that I'm aware of. Certainly zoning would have records of that. But again, that's very far and few in between that we actually get
We
involved.
don't get questions.
No, it hasn't happened that I've known on and I've had the feeling for a while that we're
out of the
we're
loop.
sort of, we're out of the loop
No question
on
about
things,
it.
and I'm wondering if there's something that we should do that would help us stay aware of what projects are underway and things that are potentially.
Well, that's where Public Works would come in. So let's get back to that question of the meeting. Who is going to approach Barry and Daniel about a convenient time for them to meet? And are we willing to adjust our time to theirs?
I can do that.
Okay,
I'm certainly.
me too.
Makes sense.
So, Mr. Chairman, you're going to approach Barry.
Yes, I'll talk to him about it. We may take a bit of discussion to figure out what that time might be. And we have these other things that are calling on our attentions, so that may impact it too, so.
If I can make a suggestion just on behalf of staff, maybe it would be helpful to have Public Works come like quarterly or every other meeting or something, because that may make them able to budget their time and come, maybe every other meeting, every quarter, and, share their information that way.
I don't think every quarter is enough, looking at what we see there.
Just a suggestion.
I don't, okay.
I'd also be interested to see what outstanding requests you got. As a member of the tree board.
There's so much of what,
Sit with the power of request, decide, we have no idea.
there's so much of what they do in this document.
Do that again.
I said, there's so much of what they do in this document.
I do have a question, Caleb, that you may be aware of, say, I guess, new construction. You know, I've seen situations where new places being put in and the contractors, first thing they do is they bulldoze the whole property.
Yeah, and then they start, yeah.
Yeah. And so it takes down all kinds of trees right up to the street. And if I understand it right, that would not be legal to do if it's taking down trees that are actually included in the right of way.
Yeah, so
So do
every,
those things come up that you're aware of?
yeah, so new development has to submit a site plan to me. And so I check on there whether they're doing anything in the right of way. And if they are doing anything in the right of way, depending on if they're removing trees in the right of way, then I send them to Barry to figure out whether or not they can or whatever. As far as when they come in and they bulldoze everything, they're grading to actually start the construction. We do have, for lots that are over 40% slope, we do require certain percentage of the site to remain undisturbed and revegetation if those areas are disturbed, but that's only on steep slope lots.
There's severe. There are very limiting. There are requirements in the steep slope lot that there are a severe restriction on how much you can clear.
Mhm.
And you have to leave almost all of your trees with the exception of the maximum cleared area, which is relatively small.
It is.
So there's in effect a tree protection ordinance vis-a-vis the steep slope lot, at least during the construction process. Now, that sort of changes once the permit is finished, but there's not a similar tree protection ordinance for other lots. So some towns do have tree protection ordinances.
They also may have minimum lot coverage standards where maximum lot coverage standards where you can only convert a certain percentage.
None of that. All this really covers is trees. Our tree ordinance, all it really covers is trees in the public right of way or dangerous trees adjacent to the public right of way.
And then anything voluntarily done
Yeah.
by private property owners in terms of the education and outreach, recommended species, things
We
like that.
don't restrict, through this ordinance, the tree ordinance, we don't restrict what people can do on their private property. The only restriction there is, it's a steep slope, and that only applies to steep slope.
So,
And that's not uncommon. That's not uncommon to see. There are places that do have some restrictions, but it is very difficult to regulate vegetation on private property.
And as a zoning director, you handle all those.
Yeah,
So that would concern us.
now y'all are not saying that a owner has the right to come on to take down every tree on his property, are
they do. Yeah.
It's not a steep slope. Take
you? You
down
can just
every-
raise it to the ground.
Every blade of grass.
Mhm.
Every tree, every shrub.
I don't see many people coming into Mont Street and doing that.
It happens at the ETJ.
That's typically done. That's done places,
Yeah,
but it's typically done where the builder is coming in either clearing huge sections of property, not single lots. which
Yeah.
we have here. And they can mass clear much more cost efficiently a 40-acre piece by just bulldozing the whole thing. That's where you see that. The other place, you also see that where they are in effect regrading the property for drainage purposes. And a lot of trees don't survive regrading, so they take them all down because they won't survive anything.
yeah, and I don't think I've seen any lots completely cleared in my time here for development, because just like Mason said, we're not doing multi-tract development. We're not doing like what you would consider a traditional subdivision. It's single lot developments. And one of the things that I hear constantly about people who are coming to Montreat to build a house, just moving here, is they love the trees. And so, I don't see a lot of just complete clear cutting.
There's not really pressure to regulate it because
No.
it's not, it's not. being-
Okay, so do we have any jurisdiction in the ETJ?
All of our planning and zoning regulations apply in the ETJ.
So if somebody was gonna do a subdivision. They would have to comply with. Or something.
If they were building a house.
I'm talking about clear cutting.
I mean, it depends on whether the lot's over 40% slope. If it's not over 40% slope,
They can clear cut.
they can,
Make it clear cut, but.
but when you're using,
There are so small.
Yeah.
There's so much right of way in there. There's not really, not practical. It's not a work.
yeah,
In other
Okay.
words, you'd have to, it'd be very expensive to get in there. You'd have to survey where the right of way was. Nobody's gonna do it.
Mm-mm.
They're not. gonna do it. It's not. It's not economically. possible.
and it's not something that I've run into. Like I said, the clear cutting and clear grading of a track, I have not run into that here. Because like I said, I think that the value of the environment in Montreat, even with people who are kind of newer to Montreat coming in, is very high. And so I think that the cost limitation of grading the entire site, plus the environmental value, I mean, that's just my take from administering.
We may not
ordinance.
have ETJ with this current legislative session, so.
To be decided.
but
So it's the
state
extra-
Senate's passed the bill that eliminates ETJs.
Extra.
It's changed.
It's changed now.
Yeah, it would not eliminate the extraterritorial jurisdiction here.
What?
It wouldn't here. Yeah, as it's written the last time I checked it, which was like 2 weeks ago. The ETJ is the extraterritorial jurisdiction. It's a buffer around Montreat that we apply our planning and development rules to. So they're not actually in the municipal boundary, but we exert development regulations on them. So it's basically Graybeard, the Billy Graham property, and then there's some other little pieces of
If you
property.
go up Graybeard here, you just keep going. And the place where you run off. Yeah.
All right,
That's, yeah. And then on the sides too, some goes into McDowell County, but it's no one lives there.
Where are we on the agenda?
I think
We are still on 6-2. And that may be all we do. If we do nothing else, we'll be be fine.
It's very helpful.
action
So-
items. Why don't we talk about that? Move down to action items because we're past an hour. I know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Uh,
looking at the wrong clock. One action item for me is I will talk to Barry about schedules, our meetings.
I've gotten a copy of these, I've gotten a copy of the rules of procedure for the tree board. I'll send that out to everybody. Okay, I'll send it out electronically.
Is that it?
Yeah, rules of procedure. Well, I think they may pass them out. Right.
So, how about tree management plan, those documents that they are available on the website, but I could get some printed out and pass them out to everybody.
Yeah, why don't you inventory what we got, what we don't got?
Yeah.
In terms of the tree management plan, tree cleaning guide, everything else like that. So that we know where we are. with everything.
I'll try to make sure that everybody gets a complete set of all that.
Yeah, that's great. And then I'll work on getting I'm not sure whether parents committed or not. Based on the attorney calls yesterday. So, I'll run that by you, and if anybody, Ed, you or Eric can have suggestions on a good tree board member. Parents not interested, so. Again, he initially indicated he would be, but could be.
And he said yes to me too, so. But there may have just been confusion about whether he hasn't been appointed yet, should he attend this meeting?
I'll work on sorting it out. But let me think. Also with that, Kayla, you did a great job.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
Good presentation.
Thank you.
It does point out that there's other things we need to pay attention to and
We're all.
And get our
this was
act
really
together.
helpful.
My pleasure. Yeah, and like I said, this is all the ordinances are living documents. So if there are things in there that, you guys want to change, that's certainly something that can be done. It's a living document.
Okay, I do want to call your attention to the colored paper that says environment on it. This is page 50 out of the new
Comprehensive plan.
Montreat tomorrow, it's called comprehensive plan. Item 2 and item 5 on that page talk about things the tree board would be expected. Pay attention to. One of them is basically collaborate with MRA college and the conservancy and recommending strategies to protect forests, etc. That's a collaboration with those agencies that has not really been part of what we've done up until now. So I think if we take that seriously, it's going to impact how we do business. And a periodic review of the species list, which is it's included as an appendix of this. We also have the other things. That's much less onerous, but just a reminder that we need to try to stay on touch of what species are good and not. We do have those things, and they don't change very much.
That's an easy. Yeah.
So we have run over time. You're right. I think that's so engrossed and exciting.
It's all right.
Is there any other business that we have to address? So take note, next meeting is August 22nd. Unless we decide differently with Barry, so. No. Once I get to talking with him, if we come up with ideas about what might work, then I'll get in touch with everybody and we'll work it out. Yeah, I can be pretty flexible myself. But the thing that's less frequent, less flexible is this space and coordinating with other groups that are meeting the needs. So
It could be a conference room there, but we wouldn't be able to set up the Zoom meetings, but
I
all right.
could.
Good.
Yeah.
I can speak to that.
so
Well, there wouldn't be any room for the public. You have to do this. No, I know, but
you get people excited about something. We might give it to them.
You can't do something, but be it.
Okay, so thank you very much and thank you, Kayla.
all right.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job.
Thank you.
So, I think everybody's already voted on their way out the door, so.
We adjourn.
we're adjourned.
Okay.